All right. I'd like to welcome everyone to our final installment of our Catawba Traditional Arts series. I'm Dr. Stephen Criswell, Director of Native American Studies at USC Lancaster. We've really been enjoying these presentations, demonstrations, discussion over the past week, and we're finishing up today with one of our favorite people, Beckee Garris. Again, I'd like to thank the South Carolina Arts Commission's Folklife and Traditional Arts program for helping to support this program, and we thank USC Lancaster and Palmetto College. And we're here today at the Native American Studies Center with past and present Native American Studies Center employee, past artists in residence, traditional artist, tradition bearer, storyteller, potter, basket maker, I don't know, probably juggler, Beckee Garris. And Beckee's going to talk with us today about the pine needle and pine straw basket making, as well as I'm sure, as well as other Catawba related traditional arts matters. So let's go ahead and turn it over to Beckee. Beckee, how are you today? I'm
good, thank you. Good. With all the past that you put in there, I'm just glad I'm not past yet.
So tell us about what you're working on in this I think kind of new genre of art that you're working on.
Well, it's a old genre, but it's new to me. So Nancy Basket came down because she and Faye have been friends for a long time, and brought her down to the Cultural Center in Rock Hill, and she taught us the basic steps of how to make longleaf pine needle baskets. And I started doing it, but I found out that my niche is actually making earrings.
Okay, well, they're in jewelry.
And jewelry. You know, so I've actually made jewelry out of the clay too. So yeah. So, and these are just some of the sizes and styles of baskets that I had made back whenever I was actually the artist in residence a while back.
Well, yeah, talk a little bit about I mean, you mentioned Nancy there, and Nancy Basket, for folks who don't know, is a basket maker who works, one of the things she works with is kudzu. And I always say God bless her for doing something good with kudzu. And she makes kudzu paper, and she makes kudzu baskets and that sort of thing. And she was artist in residence here a little while back, and is working out of largely a Cherokee tradition. Is pine straw basketry, though, I mean, is it historically part of the Catawba tradition?
I don't think so, because I've never seen any other than current, and I'm saying current in the last 20 years.
Yeah. So. That's mostly white oak.
And white oak split, and then some river cane. Yeah. It's just like when Monty was here Saturday, he was talking about the difference between river cane and the bamboo. Mm-hmm. Well, because of the bamboo is an invasive plant, it's actually almost destroyed a lot of the native river cane because it grows so fast.
It takes over.
It takes over. It's just like, this is the pine trees that most people are used to now. Mm-hmm. And it's actually an invasive tree because it grows a lot faster, because that's what they used to make the pulpwood out of.
Yeah.
You can harvest one of those trees in 7 years. Yeah. The longleaf pine needle doesn't grow that fast.
Oh. So are those larger cones from the longleaf pine?
From the longleaf pine needles, and this is from the.
So if you're walking in the woods and you find a really large pine cone,
and that's the longleaf, yes. Right? Because, like I say, this is off of the pine trees that they use the regular for making the pulpwood. Yeah. And this is the longleaf pine needles.
Well, they're very long.
Yes.
it's
yeah. And now, also riding down the road, I've discovered that I can pick out which is which, because I started noticing how the pine needles actually grow.
Mm.
The short leaf pine needles, they're almost like they're standing up
Yeah.
or waving at each other. But the long leaf, they hang down because of the weight and the length of them. And the tree limbs are further apart on the long leaf pine
Oh,
needles.
okay. Huh.
So,
So, well, and also usually most of the time you see the short needle trees, they're in a row, they're lined
yes,
up
yes,
because
they're
they're
lined up,
intentionally
yes.
planted there too. So, as far as we know, the longleaf pine though is something indigenous to this
They're
area.
indigenous, yes.
Yeah. So we have to figure that Catawba, ancient Catawbas and other native folks in this area use them not for baskets, for other purposes.
Well, they had actually put it in some areas. They have used it to even put it inside the clay,
Oh,
or when they were making the bricks to daub the houses
yeah,
and different things.
sort of like the old straw and
Right,
hay.
yeah. Mhm.
It just makes me think of the Ten Commandments.
That's right.
To make bricks without
Yes.
straw.
Mhm.
Oh, that's neat. So where do you get your pine needles?
I got these from Pageland.
Yeah.
I went down and harvested some yesterday.
So wandering onto someone's property.
Well, I had permission. She wasn't there, but I still had permission.
And, so we want to encourage folks if they get interested in this to get permission before you wander onto any property in South Carolina, really. Well, good. So talk a little bit about the technique for making these, the whole process.
Yeah. Well, the process of starting with anything that you're going to make, whether it's a pair of earrings or a larger basket, is you kind of separate or sort the lengths of the pine needles so that whenever you start off, you have the same length. And this is also why Faye Griner calls me a troublemaker.
Yeah.
It's because I do tradition in a non-traditional way.
Yeah.
This is artificial sinew.
Oh, okay. So the traditional way would be
The
actual
traditional
sinew.
way would have been sinew or the raffia.
Yeah.
Which is,
Sinew
vines.
sinew from deer?
Yeah.
Is that, okay. And this is a lot easier to get.
Yes.
Deer don't want to give that up.
Yeah. And what you do is select the number of pine needles that you're going to start off with, and you just wrap it to bind it together. But you also have to make sure that you put a knot in it once you get through wrapping the number that you want to wrap. Because if you don't, it'll unravel, as you saw that tried to do while I was getting the knot in there.
You're using a sewing needle.
Yes.
Or sewing needle for that.
A larger sewing needle. And then you just start binding it. More or less like you're rolling it.
Yeah. That's going to become the base.
The base of whatever it is. This because I used 5.
Mm-hmm.
It'll probably wind up being like a small basket.
Oh, okay.
Because with the earrings, if I make earrings or if I make a medallion out of it, I'll only use just one.
Mm.
I've even used just one needle, for pine needle, and wrapped it. And I've also used as many as 7.
Now you're using green needles there.
I'm just doing this now because of making it easier and more bendable.
Mm-hmm.
Now, these are also, this is where they're changing colors when
Right.
you lay them out to let them dry.
Yeah.
because if Faye knows that I'm not very patient.
Yeah. So,
When I want to do things, I want to do it in a hurry.
well,
Just like within the pottery, you know,
Yeah.
sometimes, like Caroline says, making pottery will make you humble very fast if you try to do it too fast. Because it will crack, pop, snap, like the
all the
cereal
yeah.
snap, yeah, snap, crack, one pop, or, you know, can get a hairline crack in it.
Yeah, so if you keep on with this one, will it eventually turn brown?
It will.
Okay.
But like I say, I'm just using this now just for
Demonstration.
demonstration's sake.
So this all came from Nancy coming to the reservation and
Yes.
teaching somebody how
Yes.
to do this.
Yeah.
Are other folks making pine straw baskets? Did you know?
Not at the moment, because like I say, COVID brought a lot of stuff to a halt for a while. And actually, I harvested some extra ones yesterday because I have a niece that's a school teacher in Asheville, and she wanted to know if I had any. And I said, no, but I can go get you some. So I'm supposed to mail her some of these later this week.
Pine needles in the mail.
Yes.
Yeah. It's going to confuse the postal workers.
Yes. Well, that's why I'm gonna have to find that round tube.
Hopefully there won't be a pine sniffing dog.
Yeah.
So this is not the first, your first foray into basket making.
No.
So
Yeah.
talk a little bit about how you picked up the basket making in general, particularly the split.
From Faye. Faye is another one of those that's multi-talented. She can do the split baskets, cane baskets. She also does pottery. And as you saw whenever she was here last week, she showed where she and, once again, Nancy Basket had done the Two Nations pot.
Right, yeah.
She made the base out of clay, and Nancy added the rim around it with the pine needles. Now I'm just going to continue doing this until I get to the end, and then I'll show you how to start adding.
Okay. Now, was it working with Faye? Was that one of those that came out of you working here and Faye being our artist in residence, or was that more with Caroline?
Both.
No.
Plus, you know, working at the cultural center for a while and coming by and they had classes there.
Yeah.
So it was fortunate to not only being able to work with them, but it's also an honor and a privilege to be kin to all of them, keeping the tradition going.
Well, yeah, most of the folks we featured this week have been artists in residence here, and then we also mentioned Nancy Basket as well. And I really am delighted to see this interaction between the different artists that you worked with Faye, you worked with Nancy and Faye. You have worked together and creating objects together. You all worked with Keith in one way or another, and Monty as well. But it's really wonderful to see this sort of interaction and interdisciplinary, I guess, or intergenre activity here. I mean, is this harder than making the split investments?
Yes, because it's a lot smaller.
Yeah.
And they call them pine needles because if they get too dry, it's just like being stuck with a needle.
Yeah.
Yes.
Was this harder than pottery then?
No.
No, pottery's the hardest.
Pottery is not so much the hardest as far as making it.
Yeah.
It's just the time constraints of what you can do, how long you have to wait, and the steps of the building it is the easy part.
Yeah, the preparation.
The preparation, and
Right.
then after once you make it or at least have the shape formed, you have to scrape it, polish it.
Yeah.
And what I mean by polishing, for people who don't know, that we take a smooth river rock and actually polish the clay to where it's got, looks like you have painted a glaze on it, which is not, it's just
Yeah,
plain
there's no glaze or.
no glaze
finish on
or,
it, it's just-
and no potter's wheel and no kiln
Yeah.
are used in traditional Catawba pottery making.
Which is just more time, more steps.
More steps, more from
and more
digging,
opportunity.
more digging your own clay.
Yeah, and more opportunities for something to happen.
Yes.
And start all over. I think we have a question. Yeah, is this a Facebook question? Sure, let's hear it.
Sharon Marie Norton asks, how big is the biggest pine needle basket that you have made?
This one?
Well, maybe we go in the other direction. Then what's the smallest? Is it? Yeah.
This one?
I mean, let's see if I can hold that in front of the camera there to get a sense of that. That's a tiny basket.
And that is just one.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So this isn't sinew though. This isn't sinew on this one though, right? That's holding together?
No, it's thread.
Oh, okay. But you got some multicolored baskets and some solid colored ones. How do you get your color?
By letting the needles dry, and also depending on what color thread I use.
Oh, okay. So this red one, it looks solid red. But when you look at it.
It started out like this, and then I used red sinew.
Oh,
See.
okay.
So,
Yeah. From here, it looks like the needles themselves are red, but when you get up close on it, you can see that it's a mix of colors. And then you have your earrings here. I'm gonna hold up one of these. Sorry, the camera's reversed. Well, no, that's not. Is that an earring?
Yeah.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
Okay, there's the earring part. There we go. I imagine these are popular.
Yep. They, during when we were able to have the Native American, craft sales and everything, they went fast.
What's a set of earrings like that go for?
$30.
$15 an earring.
Yep. Or, if two guys want to buy one, $15 a piece. Be a pirate. And you see where I cut the ends off? And I leave this much on the end, and you just slide it in there where it's locked, and you hold it.
It's a whole new bundle.
Hold the bundle, yes.
So how heavy or light are the earrings, Becky?
They're pretty light, yeah. Now, depending on if I add something else to them.
Oh, we actually just got comments that said they're very lightweight.
Yeah, no, they really are. I mean, it feels almost like paper. It's nothing like maybe cardboard. The heaviest. And how long have you been doing this?
4, 5 years.
This is your newest.
This is my newest endeavor.
Yeah. Well, now we know that so you learned this from Nancy Basket, the split oak basket you started working with Faye Griner. What about the pottery? When did you start making pottery?
How old am I? Oh, about 40 years ago.
Now, when you were a child, were you allowed to touch the clay, or were you instructed?
No, I was not allowed to play in the clay.
But so when you were a child, who around you was making pottery?
Aunt Verdi Sanders, which is Caroline's mother, Viola
Robin.
Aunt Rosetta Sanders, Nola Campbell, Evelyn George, and several others.
And you started, and you were in your adulthood. Then
Right,
when
yes.
You started. And how did that happen? How did you start?
I started working at the culture center. Well, I had actually, um, yeah, I did play in the clay then. Fox Ayers and Sarah would stop by a convenience store that my former husband and I had run on Highway 21 going towards Columbia on the other side of Great Falls.
Mhm.
And they would stop, and I had just asked him one day, about some clay, and he left me a bucket of clay. And so I started working with it then for a while.
Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, and then that's when I really learned how to be humble, because I had actually made 2 huge pots, and I was too anxious because, I mean, they were really nice considering those were the first ones I ever made, and I heated them up too fast and they both shattered, and that broke my heart. So it took a while for me to get back into it.
What did you have somebody helping you through that process, or you were just?
No, I was trying to do it from memory.
Yeah.
The memory of how it all looked after it came out of the fire.
When you were a kid, the memory of being a child.
Yeah, but I forgot that you had to let it dry first. So it was still wet.
I was just going to mention, anytime anyone mentions Sarah Ayers, it's a probably little known fact, but there's a piece of Catawba pottery by Sarah Ayers in the White House Library. We have a similar piece here, but it's the kind of thing that I don't know that a lot of South Carolinians know, but I think that's something that we can take pride in, that not just a South Carolinian, but an original South Carolinian has made a piece. There are, I think, maybe half a dozen pieces by Native artists in the White House, and that's one of the ones that's featured, because she was an amazing talent. But I guess I'm thinking over the years, though, you've worked with or been inspired by other potters as well.
Yes.
You mentioned Caroline. Are there others?
Well, Evelyn George, which is Faye Griner's mother. So. And one time, whenever she was teaching classes, I made the mistake of saying I was playing in the mud.
Oh, mud. Oh, no.
Yeah. She didn't let me forget that either.
Hence troublemaker.
Yeah. Hence not a troublemaker, yeah.
Maybe that's where that's coming.
Yeah.
Well, and go ahead and talk about that. In addition to making pottery, making baskets, making pine straw baskets, making white oak baskets, you've also have done performances, we'll say, as a storyteller, with Catawba stories and Catawba traditions, and worked and have worked and continue to work on the language. Tell the folks a little bit about what happened in terms of the loss and the recovery of the language.
Well, Chief Samuel Taylor Blue was my great-grandfather, and he was one of the last fluent speakers of the language. And I was 12 years old when he passed. He did not teach his children the language other than, a few words and phrases, because he was born around 1872. So by the time he was an adult, that was whenever the laws were passed that you couldn't speak your language, you couldn't practice your culture, you couldn't practice your religious ceremonies or anything else. And so in my mind, he did that to make it easier for his children and the future generations, not realizing that it was going to be full circle again, to where people, it's not that we weren't proud of who we were, it's just that I didn't even know we had another language.
Yeah.
Because I never grew up hearing it on a daily basis. Now, I did hear him speak whenever dignitaries or visitors came, and he would say some things and play on the hand drum and sing some songs in Catawba. But I'm also the generation where children were seen and not heard. So we kind of slipped and listened to him.
Well, I imagine too, he wanted you or his children and grandchildren to prosper,
Right.
and in, the fact of the matter was that, the jobs and future and education and all that was in a English speaking society and white society,
and also, well, I don't know how many people actually know that the American Indians weren't even given citizenship until 1924.
Yeah.
South Carolina didn't give us citizenship until 1944.
I recall, I remember now who it was, but Catawba was in the middle, he was in World War II, saying that I could fight and die for this country, but I'm not a citizen of it.
Right.
It doesn't always get taught in the history books, but it's a really important, just to give you perspective on what it meant to be in that time.
What amazes me more than anything else is that 99% of the Native Americans volunteered to go into the service. Now, my Uncle Bill, Albert Sanders Jr., he just passed away a couple of months ago. He was our last World War II veteran. And he had volunteered and he went into the Navy. And as you remember when we interviewed him, I mean, I still cry when I think about him crying about going to shore in Japan after Japan surrendered. And it still amazes me that after all of that, and then they would come back and then they would still be denied a job.
Well, not only the Navy, he served in the Navy, he turned around and joined
the Air Force. Yes, he was a fireman in the Air Force.
You don't get more patriotic than that, and it's not necessarily, it's not something we need to be proud of as a nation, but hopefully we're improving. So let me pause here and come back to the language if we can, but we have a question. How often does she do the loop of the sinew around the pine needles? Half an inch, question mark.
Until I get tired.
So it's just sort of going in and out around, in and out around.
Just depend on how big of a base I want.
Now, when you do this, do you have to concentrate heavily on it, or is this the kind of thing you can just sort of?
Well, once your fingers get used to going around and around, and then when you get towards the end, you say, okay, I need to add some more.
Yeah. So we were saying that Chief Blue was one of the last speakers of the language, and with his death, at least fluency or growing up with the language died out. So tell us about it coming back, about being revitalized.
Well, like I say, there were always some of our people that knew some words and phrases, and plus over the time we were always being advertised as the last of the breed, that we would soon disappear. And so anthropologists and researchers came around. And
all of them are dead now.
Yeah, they were all dead now. They disappeared. And they came down and interviewed Grandpa Blue and Sally Brown and Granny Margaret. And they would write it down. Well, they would have to write it down phonetically because we didn't even develop our own written language until 1999.
Yeah.
And so it took 3 or 4 years for the tribe to even come to the consensus of how we wanted it to be written. Some wanted to use symbols, some wanted to combine symbols and everything. So finally decided that we would use the international alphabet.
Right. This is where Claudia Priest.
Helped us. Yeah, she worked for us before she worked for y'all.
Before we coached her to come up for us. Right.
And she helped us write the dictionary. And through research and talking to some of our elders who have now since passed, who remembered the words and some phrases and different things, plus some of the anthropologists and researchers had written words down. Like I say, they wrote it down phonetically, and then they used their own symbols and phrases, so we had to kind of go around and figure out what they meant. So by using the international alphabet, we can have the sounds for our vowels. Because our vowels, we have 4 sounds for A, E, I, and U.
Each one has 4 sounds, or those are the 4 sounds?
Each one of them has,
Each one, oh.
each one of them has 4 different sounds.
Okay.
It's just like ni tem tanaka itahang yakari.
Sure.
That was saying, I was saying to all, I'm saying hello.
Okay.
And just like our name Catawba, I've always heard that the Yuchi tribe of Indians who were along the coast of Georgia when the Spanish explorers came along were the ones that named us Catawba. So I finally met a Yuchi gentleman who was a minister, and we met at Lake Junaluska. And I kept asking him every time I'd see him every year, and I would say, okay, I've been told this. Is this true?
You're told what Catawba.
And I said, your people were the ones that named my people. And he said, I don't know. And then he'd go back doing what he was doing. And so there was one year I pinned him down and I said, all right, you either verify it as true or verify it as not true that your people named my people. And so I said he got on his electronic smoke signals. And he called back home and talked to his, I believe he said it was his aunt. And I think at that time she was like 94, 95. And she said, yes, they were the ones that named us Catawba. But Catawba in their language meant strong people standing together. And according to what I was saying, that, you know, that Grandpa Ballou told us that, you know, of the migration of how we became here. So
right, and then the archaeological and historical record shows that the Catawba are made up of a number of different tribes, so a number of strong people who came together. So that makes perfect sense.
Even migrating down from Canada.
Yeah.
You know, so
Now the Catawba word for the Catawba though
is Eastwonk,
which means
river people.
river people. Yeah.
Well, the full phrase, well, you know, regardless of what your name is, somebody's either going to shorten it or give you a different name.
Or nickname, yeah.
So it's Eastwonk, Eastwonk Trunk Ray, which means people of the Washaway Riverbank.
Oh, okay.
So, but we've always been close and connected to the river.
Right.
So, so people want to know, were we named after the river, or was the river named after us?
Yes.
So it's a lot of the rivers, like the Santee and everything else, is whenever the tribes were located along that river basin.
Yeah.
So it's the same river, but location, like you say, location. It depends on where a particular village is located, that the river name changes.
So maybe named after the river, maybe the river's named after them. So it's almost both.
Yeah, well, it's sort of cohabited.
Yeah. So the language revitalization, you were talking about the early 90s. That was after the Catawbas received their federal recognition back, or?
Yes,
Okay.
after we regained it again.
So was there, in that period when the tribe was trying to get, so it should back up and say that I think Roosevelt administration, it was.
He started it, but Eisenhower was the one to finish it.
Yeah. So the idea was to take away federal recognition from tribes with the idea that they would assimilate into the larger society and move to the cities.
And plus they wouldn't have to hold to the treaties of
Yeah, they
paying
can
what they
ignore
claim.
treaties
Yeah.
and not have to worry about paying for services and that sort of thing. In its most beneficent, in its kindest form, the idea was to integrate Native people into the larger society for economic success and gain and all that. And of course, no one planned on the fact that businesses weren't going to hire them, that, we talked about the Catawbas couldn't work in the textile mills in the Rock Hill, Lancaster, Charlotte areas. So it really was not helpful in any way. It was very destructive in a lot of ways. And so with the Catawbas, like a number of tribes, sued the federal government to regain the recognition. So this is during the 80s, 90s.
Right. Yeah.
So it seems though that during that period, like right before recognition was regained and right after, there was almost and I think maybe Bill Harris has called it a Catawba Renaissance.
Yes.
Does you feel like that's,
Yes.
yeah, yeah. Because I mean, the language, the pottery classes and revitalization of basket making here. Do you feel like that's still going on?
Yes.
Now, and one other thing that you do is that you understand you work with the children's programs and summer camps and so forth on the reservation as well. Do you get a sense that these kids are they going to be making pottery or making baskets and so on and so forth when they're
Oh yeah.
a little
Well,
older?
it's like any group of children, regardless of the ethnic background. It's what you were taught when you were young. You embrace it because when you're young, and then you become a teenager and go find yourself and do everything else. Yeah, there's a lot of other things out there that's more important than doing traditional things.
Right.
But it's just like me, when you get older, you always come back to your roots.
That does seem, I mean, across ethnic groups and populations, that does seem to be a thing when people get to their maybe mid to late 30s into their 40s, there seems to be a looking backwards, whether they suddenly are interested in their genealogy or they're interested in things their father or mother did or recipes or whatever. And this does seem to be a large cultural movement among the Catawba.
Plus, by that time, most of the time you've got your children raised and out of the house, and you have more time.
Yeah, absolutely. So we talked about that the other day. That when a lot of these, what are sometimes referred to as master potters of that 80s, 90s generation, they were retiring from working in the textile mills, Georgia Harris working as a nurse. I guess, that's part of it too. You retire and you have the time to revisit that. So you teach language classes on the reservation?
We have, and like I say, once again, that nasty COVID has put a lot of stuff to a screeching halt. And so, but it also has given us time to do renovations to the cultural center. It's totally different on the inside than what it was. Our craft store will be back up and running.
And do you have items for sale in the craft store?
Yes.
Or will you?
Yes. I think I have some earrings with a medallion necklace and some pottery and other things. That reminds me, I need to go get my check.
So they should probably be back open in the very near future.
Yes.
All right, do we have any questions? Okay, so if any of the viewers have questions, you can type them in or you can chime in, whichever you feel better about. Let's see, I was going to ask you about some more of this.
Well, you're talking about the language. I have a 2-year-old great-grandson. And so I finally, he now knows how to say kate in Tanaki, which means Tanaki is the hello and the kate is I'll see you later.
Oh, that was my question. So are the language classes just for Catawba?
At the moment, yes, but eventually it will be open up to others because I'm saying it's always been my feelings that at some point, I don't care who speaks it, as long as somebody speaks it, so they won't die out again. So it's,
Yeah, I think we would love in the future to have Catawba language classes. And
Yeah.
we've talked about not a foreign language.
Right.
That's
No,
not the right terminology, but it's a second language. It's a language that students could learn.
well, you know, just bringing up another topic is you're the reason I have started back to college, or not back to college, but the reason I started college, I'm a first generation college graduate. And you had come up to the cultural center because we were doing something and some kind of event, and we invited in the Native American Studies Center up there. And the way you enticed me was, well, would you like to be the first graduate from USCL with a Native American Studies degree?
Yeah.
And I said, yes. And he said, okay, well, you're going to have to hang on until we actually get a degree.
Yeah.
A certified degree. Well, I'm still waiting.
Well, we have.
But you're on the way, because
Yeah.
now I think it is one of the humanities.
We have a Bachelor of Liberal Studies degree that where students can focus on Native American Studies as one component, and we are slowly working on a degree in Native American Studies. It's a little tricky for us being a 2-year college and being part of Palmetto College, and now there's some things in Columbia with changes to the online degrees, but I think it's something that in the very near future we'll be offering. We've got the infrastructure for it. We've got the faculty to teach it. We're going to have to hire a new historian since we've lost Brooke Bauer to Tennessee. But yeah, I think that's something that's going to work out. And keep hanging around. We'll get you there. And as far as the white man enticing Native people, I think that's not something that's fun. But yeah, I should mention I've known Beckee for quite a while. We're part of a group called the South Carolina Traditional Arts Network that grew out of the Arts Commission Community Scholar, Institute for Community Scholar program. In fact, one of our early events, we had an auction, and I bid on a tiny piece of pottery, a little smudge pot, that I think may have been one of your first pieces there. But yeah, it's a treasured piece. But now, were you in the Institute for Community Scholars? Yeah. So what year was that?
I don't know.
Was it a few?
I think it's one of the last next to the
one.
last ones that they were able to have.
What did you find that beneficial?
I did. It was interesting. As a matter of fact, we were talking about that the other day, is whenever Brent Bergen had given me the crowd.
Oh, the story of going to the folklorist in the South.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a great program, and I do hope the Arts Commission will pick that back up. And it was a program in that form. It was 2 weeks?
2 weeks, yeah.
In 2 different locations, and you learn about South Carolina traditional culture, and you learn how to document, and whether it's film or audio and so forth, document your own culture. And there were some really great projects that came out of that institute, and some really great artists and scholars, and then I think probably some really good friendships came out of that experience as well. So, I think, and there's someone you're in touch with pretty regularly still.
Yeah.
So,
Yvette.
yeah. So that's it was a great program, and I think when we think about where our tax money is going for art and so forth, I mean that's a great opportunity. And at that time, you were just making pottery. You were making all of these other.
Yeah, I was just making pottery.
And I should mention while you're here that Beckee is featured in a graphic collection, a graphic interpretation of drawings.
Graphic
I don't
stories,
want to
Native
say
American stories.
Yeah, I don't want to say comic book, but it sort of looks visually like a comic book called Tricksters. It was edited by a fellow named Matt Beckee, I believe is his name. What's the story that you tell in the book?
About the Yingsasaurus,
Yes,
the little wild.
The little wild people. And you've told me the story before, but tell the folks about how he drew you, the image of you.
Yeah. Well, it was actually, there were 21 different native storytellers. And there were, I think, 18 different artists that drew the graphics. And it was all done over the emails.
So you wrote the story out, told the story,
And
said,
wrote it,
this
and
is our
said it, and
job,
they
Trickster
wrote,
story.
and never met the guy, but it was the perfect example of how I looked at that particular time.
Yeah.
Somebody said, well, how did he get your picture? And I said, in his mind, I guess.
So he had no idea what
He had no idea what it looked like.
He
He
just drew a
just drew
storyteller,
it,
and
yeah.
it looks like you. And it does. I mean, I used that book in a number of classes, and it is surprising how much it looks like you in comic book,
Yeah.
cartoon form. So what's the story? Was there a specific story that you told?
Yeah, well, it was about the little Yingsasaurus that were, like we were talking the other day, they were larger than fairies but smaller than leprechauns, and that they lived under tree roots, up under the hollows of trees, under the ground, and that they were known to throw things at you or to trip you if you were walking down a path. And sometimes if you're not so good of a person, they would entice you into the woods by making certain sounds, and then they would leave you and you'd be lost and be probably still trying to find your way out. And then also told that we couldn't sit in cracks in floors because they would reach up and pinch you.
It seems like there were times when the stories were used to maybe get kids to behave too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But so one of the tricks they would play is they would lure you into a place and you would get lost and couldn't find your way around, and everything looked different. Like you'd say you were looking for pine needles.
Or if you were out hunting, especially, well, you wouldn't be bad if you were looking for pine needles.
Well.
And then they were saying that they would plait the tails of the horses if a rider had stopped to get a drink of water. And by the time he cut the water or the horse drank or anything, by the time he got through, the horse's tail was plaited.
Yeah, braided?
Braided.
Yeah.
Well, we grew up saying plaited, so it's braided. Braid the hair.
I'm just translating.
Yes, I know.
Yeah, that's always struck me as it's not so much of a trick as a showing off a skill.
Yeah. Okay, well, now you see where that was just my base, so I'm going to start building the sides. And also make sure that you don't stick the needle in your hand. Yes. Don't draw your own blood.
So you'll at least have a little piece of you in every piece of
That's
art.
right.
Yeah, an artist who really puts herself in her work.
Yeah. I put myself into it, literally.
That's not where the red comes from on that.
Oh, not on that one, no. Or maybe.
Maybe a little. So the basket there in front of you, the largest one you've made. So how long did that take you?
That one took me 3 weeks.
Okay. That one in particular, a couple of these really, they have a very similar look to the sweetgrass baskets from Charleston. They use pine straw as well as the sweetgrass, and it's one of those things where I would love at some point to have a Gullah basket maker up here and working with our Catawba and charity inspired basket makers.
Caroline was talking to one of the basket makers at one time, but in Caroline's health.
Yeah,
So,
I think
but she's,
there was a folklorist in the South retreat. It's a meeting for folklorists in the southeastern area that we had a few years ago down near Charleston, and there was a Gullah basket maker that joined us along with you and Caroline. And it was wonderful to see those cross-cultural conversations about this artistry. We'd love to foster more of that if we could. So when you start making the basket, do you have a finished product in mind, or as you go along, you just think, I'm
no,
going to do
it's
this?
just like whenever I make pottery, it's just whatever my fingers make. Because every time I've tried to set out to make a particular thing, it would never work out.
So in the case of this one, you could have stopped earlier, and if you felt like it was going to be earrings,
Yeah.
you would have. Do you have a goal in mind with this one?
Not yet.
Just to show what you're.
I'm just so into sort of kill time. How much more time do I have?
How much do you need?
No.
Well, maybe talk a little bit about the importance of these arts and crafts and traditions to what it means to be Catawba.
There's no separation.
Yeah.
Even if you don't make pottery, your pottery is still your connection. And it's in your blood whether you work on it or not. My sister's going to shoot me. But my sister cannot make pottery. She's tried. But I taught her how to make the reed baskets down. I mean, and she took to it like a duck to water. I mean, it was beautiful.
Yeah, but saying that it's in the blood, there does seem to be something about that, because you have Georgia Harris, the piece behind you there, and her grandson Bill, who's now the chief. She was a great potter. He's a great potter. Nola Campbell was a great potter. He made large pieces, and then her son, right, who it makes tiny little pieces, but still with the same skill and the same aesthetic.
The process is still the same, yeah. Whether you make the smallest piece or the largest piece. It's what distinguishes between making Catawba pottery or just making pottery. I can go to town and buy commercial clay. I cannot sell it as Catawba pottery because it has to be the clay that we dug out of the banks from a site that historically we have been going to for 450 years.
Yeah.
The process to get the clay to where you can make something out of it is the same process. Yeah. Just like I mentioned earlier, you can't use a potter's wheel nor a kiln to fire it. It still has to be the pit ground firing. And that can take anywhere from 13 to 24 hours, depending on just burning them. Mm-hmm. Depending on how large the pieces are and how many pieces you have. And then the whole time you're praying that the weather doesn't change or it doesn't rain. Because even that process is long drawn out because you have to wait until they actually cool off before you can take them out of the fire. Mm-hmm. Because you have to be careful with even the utensils that you use to take them out, because if you take them out when they're too hot, and the utensil that you're using, like you reach in there with like an iron poker or something, and it's cold. Mm-hmm. There you go again. You can put a hairline crack in it, and you can spend weeks on building a piece.
It's delicate.
Yes.
It's
like, talking about Caroline, she does hers so fine that it actually clinks like fine china.
Yeah. Yeah, and she mentioned when we refer to Caroline, we're talking about Caroline Sanders, who is just an amazing potter, who's made great work and has been kind enough to help other potters along the way with their skills. We have a number of her pieces on display here. There's one right behind you. I don't think I can see it. Yeah. The snake pot back there, so you can't really see it. But yeah, she just does amazing work.
And her catfish.
And what?
And her catfish.
Her catfish, which is over here. I can't really get a shot of it, but we invite you to come to the center and you can see the catfish, you can see the snake pot, you can see Becky's work, Caroline's work, these other folks that we've talked about. Yeah, it's one of the things I think that this past week has struck me, and in some ways it's obvious why, but the natural resources and the use of what nature has given us. We see this in the artwork that's associated with the Catawba Nation, whether it's the pottery made with clay specifically dug from the local source, or the pine straw that's gotten from a local source, or the tradition of oak basket making from the oak trees that are here.
River cane.
The river cane, yeah. I mean, it's a cliche, I think, now to talk about Native people and the environment and the natural world and all that sort of thing, but it's not untrue. I mean, there's a rich supply base there around the reservation for you as well.
You see, I've made this first.
So how then do you go up to make the sides of it?
Well, when I get through with this one, I'll show you.
All right.
As you keep going around, it just naturally just goes up.
Well, I mean, you could continue that out and make a platter, right?
Right, yeah.
But you turn it up and start building sides on it.
Yeah.
And now that's interesting too, because the green, the pine was still green, and so that has a very different look to it. I think the one you're working on then, and say these here that have browned a little bit. Or
Well, eventually this will turn green too, unless I do a little trick to it.
Yeah, a little trick to preserve the green.
Yeah.
You want to share that trick, or is that
That's a trick.
is that an ancient Native secret? Is it?
No, recent Beckee secret.
Well, this is coming from the artist who told me once how to repair if you have a piece of broken Catawba pottery, and I called her to ask how you what's the way of repairing it, and the ancient Native secret there was Elmer's glue.
And a Sharpie.
And a Sharpie to cover up. So helpful, yeah.
I have a question from Facebook.
Yeah, please.
Sharon Norton says, I have one made by her with a lid on it. How many of those has she made?
3.
There you go.
Are the lids harder to make?
Actually, if I turn this over, it's a lid.
So it's really just a matter of getting to the size.
Yeah. Just make it a little bit larger than the base.
And is that just a whim decision? You think that I'm going to put a lid on it?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, you also did you make your regalia as well? So there's another one.
The one that's here.
Yeah, that we have.
Don't we have some fans that you made too?
Yeah, and some pans, turkey feather pans.
A woman of many talents.
Well, this is what I'm saying. Well, let's see. If folks have questions about pine straw baskets, about pottery, about the language, about running a convenience store.
Yeah. Pumping gas.
Pumping gas. Chime in here.
Sharon says that you made her very first regalia.
In case anybody's wondering, Sharon's my niece.
Sharon.
She's the guest.
And you employee of the Native American Studies Center.
Yes.
And possibly going back to school.
Yes.
We'll talk about that as well.
Oh, earlier she said, yeah, she wrote me in too.
Yeah. Yes. Well, I invite all Catawbans who want to go to school. Come to school here. We'll do you right. And if you can make something, we can borrow you for a program. All the better. Plumbing is good.
And you see, I'm going up to another level.
Yeah. Now, is this something you've taught? Have you taught this particular pine straw making to?
Yeah.
Okay. As a class?
No.
Oh, okay. Just informal.
Becky, we have a question on Facebook. One person asked, were you dancing at the last Yakta Ishwa Festival?
Yes.
Apparently they saw you, or they thought that it was you that they saw, so they were just curious.
Impressed with your dancing. Yeah. Well, yeah, we should add that to your resume as well. Powwow dancer, festival dancer.
And a female drummer. And yes, no, we do not drum at powwows because it's non-traditional for women to drum at powwows, but at our Yapyi Ishwa Festival, it's the Catawba Yapyi Ishwa Festival. So, and we're a matrilineal society, so if we decide to drum, we drum.
I think there was a shortage of help.
And there was a shortage of drummers at particular times too. So.
Yeah. Yeah, we were talking the other day about the drums and the powwow drums and the sacred drums, and I mentioned that we have a women's drum here as part of our collection at USC Lancaster, which I have been told I'm not allowed to touch. And I've made a point of not touching the drum. We want to follow the rules, and in the same way that if folks go to powwows or they come to the Catawba Festival, it's important to pay attention to what the presenters tell you in terms of what you can film and can't film and touch and can't touch and take pictures of and so forth. There are important rules that outsiders need to follow when they come onto the reservation.
I jokingly told somebody one time, they was talking about something, and I said, well, if you do that, that's how our tribe grows. You can't leave because you've broken a sacred.
You just become absorbed into the tribe.
You're not a tribal member, but you can't leave.
Yeah. You're a hostage.
Turn back for everybody.
Well, I mean, I think that's an old thing of hostages from other tribes. You hold on to them.
Yeah.
It's a way of making peace. There's a history to that. I think.
Yes.
Have you always thought of yourself as Catawba, or was there a time when you sort of?
No, I've just always known. Like I say, I grew up on the reservation.
Yeah.
And, there were times when we were riding the bus, we'd always get to, the TV war whoop.
Yeah.
Most people think that was originally, but that was John Wayne movies.
Oh, yeah. Well, and as we're headbands, apparently, that they used to keep their wigs on in the movies, and then it becomes Native people wore headbands. Yeah, the way Hollywood has shaped our image of Native people is strange history.
Because we've never won a battle, so.
Yeah, can't shoot straight. Yeah, I would invite people to watch the old John Wayne movie Stagecoach, and just toward the end where they have the battle scene, and wow. There are it was a Geronimo and like 200 warriors versus John Wayne and 3 other guys. Guess who wins?
Sharon mentioned that you're also a poet.
It's true. That's
Sharon's
right.
bragging on you over here on Facebook.
Right.
I'm sorry, I'm not getting paid.
Poets get a whole different basically. Well, we know how much money poets make. Those rich poets. Well, I did want to give you an opportunity. You were kind enough back in November when we had our online Native American Studies Week, and I gave a talk on tricksters, and before it started, you told a story, and then you told a story at the end, but the video didn't get it, or there was some issue with it. You feel like telling the story again? Put you on the spot.
I don't remember which story it was.
Was it the chipmunk story?
No, Chipmunk was first.
The first one.
Well, I can tell that one then.
All right, yeah.
I'll tell that one.
Good news, I hear that.
A long time ago, the ancient people said, this is how the Dippin' Dot Dot Suk Suk looks the way he does today. Yaksu every morning had these baskets that in borrows had to go out and fill them up with nuts and berries, fruit, so that they could store it, because there wasn't any Walmarts back then or grocery stores. So if you didn't store it, you didn't eat. So they would go out, fill up the baskets, come back, she would empty them, give them back to them. They'd go back. After about the third or fourth time, as children do, and sometimes even adults, you get tired of doing the same monotonous thing over and over. So they started slowing down and getting less and less in the baskets. So at one point, they just stopped, put the baskets down, and one embarrer picked up a nut and throwed it at the other one. And as we say today, it was on then. So they started chasing each other and throwing things at each other. And then the youngest embarrer stopped, started twitching and turning, and he was saying, my back really itches. Will you please scratch my back for me? And of course, big brothers being big brothers, automatically said, no. He said, but no, please, my back really itches. Can you please just help me? And once again, he said no. So he said, but please, 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 please. He said, all right, stop the squealing and I will scratch your back. So he starts scratching his back. And the youngest embarrer says, oh, that feels good, thank you. So of course, he stopped scratching his back. And he said, well, why did you stop scratching my back? Because the itch is still there. He said, well, you pull it. He said, don't go there. I'll go ahead and scratch your back. And we also know that big brothers like to do things to little brothers to make them stop pestering them. So he starts scratching his back, and the little brother said, thank you, that feels good. But this time he brings out his claws and he just rakes them down his little brother's back. Little brother starts off with saying, that feels good. Ow, ow, ouch, you're hurting me. Big brother looked at his little brother's back and he said, he's so sorry. I am so sorry. I put stripes on your back. And he really was sorry, because he knew the first thing that little brother was going to do when he got back to the house was tell mom. But little brother said, yeah, I know, because, big brothers like to tease little brothers. And he said, no, the stripes are really there. Scamper down to the creek and look at your reflection. And of course, this was before all the pollution, and you really could see your reflection in the water. So he scampers down there and he looks, and he's walking. And he looks, he stands up a little bit taller, and he goes back and he looks again. And he said, wow, thank you, big brother. I think my stripes make me look pretty cool. And big brother looks at his little brother's back and he realizes, yeah, he did make him look pretty cool. But he hangs his head, he kicks the dirt. He said, yeah, but I don't have stripes on my back. Now, why is it when little brothers get something big brothers don't have, they automatically want it too? So the little brother said, well, turn around, I'll put the stripes on your back too. And so he turns around and he puts the stripes on his big brother's back, and that is today how the Catawba say the Dippin' Dot Dot Sook Sook, or how the chipmunk got his stripes. And the story is finished.
So your niece seems to think the story was the possum story. You know what she means by that?
Yeah.
Would you like to tell us the possum story?
No.
Fair enough. Was it the one of the Elsie George told us?
Yeah.
Yeah. The daughter of Chief Semble, who we referenced earlier, passed away a few years ago, but we had the opportunity to go over to her house and interview her. And I've always told the story that when we first got there, I said, Miss George, do you, or Miss George, I said, Miss George, do you remember any Catawba language from your father? And she said, no, I don't really remember it. And then so we got to talking about her life and her being Miss Catawba at one point, I think it was, and we were packing up to go, and she said, well, before you go, let me tell you the story of Catawba, and proceeded to tell the possum story, and it's sort of a good lesson about how when you interview someone, if sometimes you've got to prove that you're worthy of a story. And so I assume that's what's happening today, that you will tell us this possum story.
Actually, I think it was about Boogney.
Yeah, the comment.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's longer, so I don't think we have time.
Yeah, we probably don't have time for that. All right, let's, do we have any further questions or comments that we'll include here? We've behind the scenes, I should mention too that Becky's been a big help in her return role at the Native American Studies Center, helping us set up the talks for this week and presentations for this week. And all of these are up or will be up on YouTube, on the Native American Studies Center YouTube channel. I've found that if you go to YouTube and you type in Native American Studies, or Native American Studies Center, it will take you right to our videos. And if you missed any of the ones from earlier in the week, those should be up. We were lucky to have the new archivists from the Cultural Center, and Keith Brown and Faye Griner and Monty Branham, and of course today Beckee Garris. And again, Becky was very helpful in getting those folks together along with herself to be here today. And we really appreciate it. We really appreciate the work of these artists. If you're interested in purchasing Catawba traditional art, I would suggest that you contact the Cultural Center on the reservation, Catawba Cultural Center or Catawba Cultural Preservation Project. As Becky said, the craft store might not be open just yet, but it will open in the near future, and I'm sure they will be happy to.
Yeah, they're still doing renovations.
Yeah, but I'm sure they'll be happy to get you in there as soon as they can and help you find what you're looking for. And the other thing would be to contact the artist directly. I always discourage folks from buying traditional art, particularly Catawba traditional art, on eBay or one of these other secondhand sellers, because you never know what you're getting. Something's advertised as an ancient piece of Catawba pottery may have been built by a 9-year-old in a summer study. It's happened before in a summer program. So buy from the artist or buy from the craft store itself on the reservation. But please do support these artists and support Catawba artists, and we again appreciate the support of the South Carolina Arts Commission who have been very supportive of our work and have worked with the Catawba Nation for many years, and I think were instrumental in some of those early pottery classes that helped not revive pottery making, but at least revitalize it in many ways.
Yeah, because within the tradition can be traced back as far as our pottery goes up to almost 10,000 years, and there has not been someone making pottery in that whole time.
Yeah. Our archivist here, Brent Bergen, I've quoted him often, and I've gotten the quote attributed to me, but it's Brent. That Brent said that when the Egyptians were making the pyramids, the Catawbas were making pottery, and that's a really good way of putting it in its historical context. Now I have added to that, when the Egyptians were making the pyramids, building the pyramids, the Catawbas were making pottery. When they were building castles in Europe, Catawbas were making pottery. When the Civil War broke out, Catawbas were making pottery. Last week, Catawbas were making pottery. Yeah. So it is
and today, Catawbas are making pottery.
Today, yes, right now, there's probably a Catawba either making it or sorting or sifting the clay or straining the clay. There's somebody doing that. It's a wonderful tradition, and that, along with the basket making and the music instrument making, these are things I think that we as South Carolinians can take pride in. I mentioned the piece by Sarah Ayers in the White House, and that's something that I think we can all take pride in and celebrate, that we have such a rich artistic and traditional artistic tradition here in South Carolina, and the first of those artists were Catawba, and I'm glad we had the opportunity to celebrate them this week. And Becky, do you have anything you want to add?
No, just thank you for all that USC Lancaster has done, not only to promote the Catawbas, but also the South Carolina tribes as well. There's not much that y'all haven't been involved in helping to protect and preserve our native South Carolinians.
Thank you. Well, we try.
Yeah.
So we do invite you to visit the center. Right now, we really only have 1 or 2 exhibits up, but as we open back up more in the coming weeks and months, we'll have more exhibits up and more programs, and hopefully we'll return to live in-person programs in the very near future, barring any further pandemics and catastrophes and apocalyptic events. But all right, well, again, thank you all for joining us. Again, these will be up on YouTube if you missed any of them and you want to see them again. And I think that's going to finish things up. Again, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for participating. And if you have any questions about these artists, the artistry, or these programs, contact us at the Native American Studies Center. You can contact me directly, Dr. Stephen Criswell, CRISWESE at sc.edu. I'm also on the website. So thank you all, and take care.